Well, GB News political reporter Olivia Utley joins us for the latest. And Olivia, you're standing there outside the Bank of England, and the Bank of England came under a great deal of criticism for how it's responded with interest rates, of course, independently set from the government. But the new Chancellor is saying that he wants to try and encourage those rates to be as low as possible, and that means potentially a much tighter fiscal policy, potentially spending cuts and tax rises.
Yes, so we're hearing a lot about this £50 billion hole in public finances. It's hard to say where exactly this hole comes from. Rishi Sunak, it's obviously very politically useful for him to blame that mini budget of Liz Truss's. Actually, it's far more likely that this huge hole in public finances is due to that huge energy package which Liz Truss promised and which Rishi Sunak has stuck to. Then how the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are going to fill it. Now, what the Telegraph is reporting this morning is that it's going to be a mix of 50% tax rises and 50% public spending cuts. There are a few options that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have here. None of them are particularly easy. If you want to go into tax rises, obviously we know that the tax burden is already the highest it's been in 70 years. So there are only very few tax rises that are available. One is the rising corporation tax, which has already been penciled in. That's considered more politically palatable than other taxes because people feel that it's not going to hit the individual quite as much. If it's hitting businesses, obviously that it will just feed down through to the individual too. Another option is stealth tax rises, which we hear quite a lot about. What that would mean is freezing the level at which people pay the personal allowance level for national insurance and income tax, and freezing the rate at which people start paying the higher rate of income tax. And if you've got high inflation, then obviously that amounts to a tax rise. Those are sort of the only tax rises which might be sort of politically acceptable. As for public spending cuts, there are a few options. There's the option to cut public sector investment. There are big sort of infrastructure projects which were particularly popular with the Boris Johnson administration, and you could think about cutting those. But the problem is that really undermines the levelling up growth agenda. And so then the other final option is cuts to the public purse, which are very, very difficult indeed. Swathing cuts across public sector departments, cuts to education, health, defence. You can't see those being politically popular in Parliament or with constituents at home. So all in all, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Prime Minister and the Chancellor to tighten up those purse strings in the budget next month. But they're going to have to find a way to do it.
Really tricky decisions to be made there. Of course, just over 2 weeks before that will all take place.